Thanks, Nitish. Morning, everyone. Let's start our session for the day. The right source of heat. This is a topic, which probably people would be thinking, right? Why? Already the required sources of heat has been set for various processes, and we are just following that. Why do we need to revisit this thing? It could be one of the things. Let me give you the perspective of this. If you don't choose the right source of heat, the productivity and the production cost may go so high that the entire business model may go for a fix. So that is that important. In today's scenario, what is happening? There are a lot of people depending on what they feel is right for the customer. They keep suggesting. So I don't think that is wrong or anything, but it is just that when you are choosing whatever the suggestions that comes to you, if you are aware of why it is being done, you can make a better choice. So we intend to give you an idea of what goes beyond choosing the right source of heat. It is not only the generation and the usage. There are a lot of other factors. Let me touch upon a very critical. What do we do in any industry? Basically, when you look at any kind of an industry, we utilize energy in order to transform product from one form to another form. So that the new form what we achieve is more useful to us. Is it not? I mean, any process, think of anything, this is what we do. Basically, we are using energy for anything. If you go towards the base of the energy, you will come across two things, which is heat and electricity. Now, electricity, go back, you will realize that even electricity is generated out of the heat. So in that sense, it would not be a cliche if I say that, the source of energy, what we use, prima facie comes from heat. Now, when we look at heat as utility people, as people, who are for ensuring right amount of heat is available for the processes, we generally deal with generation of heat. That's where the boilers, heaters, or anything comes into it. And then we need to transport this heat from the point of generation to the point of utility where it is absorbed. So our choice for any of the heating media, don't you think generally depends on these three factors? How easy it is to generate, or what is the right method of generating it? What is the method of transporting it, and what are all the associated risks, costs, advantages, disadvantages with that? And then, how do we absorb it? When we are absorbing it, what is right to be done? Okay. Today's session, what we will do is, we will generally start from generation and then go to absorption, but we will go little reverse. We will start at point and then go towards generation. Why? It is important to understand what is the criticality at the usage point. Okay. Let me bring you into some of the typical applications. Okay. Now, it is just few examples what I have taken. This is not the entire list as such. So if you really look at it for the processes what I have given over here, it's very easy for somebody to understand the dyeing process who are related with the textile processing unit. Now, when it comes to drying, there are various kinds of drying that is possible in the industrial scenario. So cloth drying is one of it. Food drying is another part of it. There are drying operations that is involved in the rice mills, drying operations that is involved in desiccated coconut mills, which are all very small scale industries. And, there are also drying process which is involved for something like food manufacturing. Let us say a noodle machine. There is also a drying process involved in that. So drying probably is the largest of the application that we see in our day-to-day life. And of course, there is printing. Printing is not limited to cloth printing or anything. There is paper printing, there is film printing, plastic printing. There are a lot of things. And distillation varies from what we see for the alcohol production or anything towards any of the chemical plants, the bulk drugs and the chemical plants. We see distillations over there. Similarly, reboilers, polymerization. Film and packaging is something which is the modern day requirement. And of course, there is refining of edible. I am not referring to the refining of oil and gas over here, particularly to the edible oil. When we take some of these examples and look at what are the kind of temperature that we are seeing. Let me just take the laser point. So we see a temperature which has an application right at 105 degrees centigrade and goes to about 240 degrees centigrade. Okay. Now you may have processes which are combination of these, or you may have a process which is standalone, which has an application at some point. Okay. Now what is important here to understand is that when you need heat for each of these applications, we keep telling that temperature is not heat, but then temperature decides what is the gradient of heat you are having. Okay, there is something called as gradient of heat. 105 is a low gradient heat in comparison with 240. 240 is an higher gradient heat and 160 is a low gradient heat. So the amount of heat required could be same, but the gradient of heat at which, or the gradient of temperature at which we need this heat keeps on varying. And that is where the choice of the right source makes an impact. Now, generally, if you have to look at what is the right source, friends, I would like to say that there are, prima facie 3 important engineering, engineering functions or properties which we need to understand. It's both how the engineering calculation works and the properties of the source what we use behave. Let me take you to one of the important factor today. That is what we call as log mean temperature difference. Okay. Now, many of you might already be knowing about it. Let me just brush up on this. When you are absorbing a heat and you have an heat exchanger, what you basically do is you put a heating media in one side and you put the media which has to absorb the heat on the other side. Okay. Now, if you are putting here, I have taken an example which is called as hot oil and cooling water. Let us say there is an hot oil which is going at 70 degrees centigrade, and there is a water which has to be heated from 30 to 36 degrees. Now, as the hot oil starts going inside, it starts losing its heat. Now, as it starts losing its heat, the gradient of the is continuously varying. So, the effectiveness of the heat, or if I divide this entire into, let us say, 3 sections, the effectiveness of the heat exchanger in this section is far higher in comparison with the effectiveness of the heat exchanger in this. So it is not only a single temperature, it is basically the temperature and area that matters. If you have idea about the finite element analysis, this is what people do. They divide the entire heat exchanger into small areas, and for each of these areas, how the gradient of the heat between the source and the absorbent is actually varying is calculated, and then they design. Now that's one. That is the latest of the designing principle that has evolved, because today we have computer. We can do that. We can the calculation speed can be increased. But generally, if you want to understand at the basic level, since it is a varying temperature, you cannot say what is the mean temperature of it. You cannot just take an arithmetic mean of it. It is not going to be giving you the right picture. So you come across what is called as log mean temperature difference. A log mean temperature difference considers the variation. If it is a parallel flow where hot fluid is also entering and cold fluid is also entering at the same location, it will look something like this. If there is the reverse, like hot fluid is entering here and cold fluid is entering here. Hot fluid goes here and comes out, and cold fluid goes here and comes out. Then it will be reverse. That's what people call as parallel flow or reverse flow, or current and co-current flow. Co-current and counter-current flow. Okay, so this is what they call. Now, any of these things, the temperature keeps on varying on both the sides. So the mean temperature is calculated using log mean temperature difference. Now, why this log mean temperature difference is important? Now, you have a very high amount of high gradient heat available, and you want to transfer it to a low gradient heat. Then the heat transfer area that is required in order to do this function actually varies. Now, let us see like how it varies. What is the impact of LMTD on heat exchanger sizing? Now, here I have basically taken a process which actually has an inlet at 110 degree and 160, an hypothetical process. And if the same 160-degree temperature is obtained by using source at various temperature, what happens to the LMTD and what happens to the area? Now I can get 160 at 190 degree, I can get 160 at 280 degree. So the area that is available, or that is do this kind of and to achieve this particular temperature profile keeps on varying. Though the LMTD is linear, you will see that the area required is fairly exponential. Okay, so when you have a very high gradient heat and you have to absorb for the low gradient source, I mean low gradient absorbent, you can actually reduce the size of your heat exchanger. Now in the other way around, if you want to have the source very close to where you want to achieve the temperature, then the heat transfer area in the heat exchanger will have to be higher, and the size of the heat exchanger will have to be bigger. So this is where the choice of your source keeps fluctuating depending on what you choose at your process decides what is going to be your source. Or if you have decided my source is having this gradient, you can reduce or increase your heat exchanger in the process. This is very, very important. But then you got to keep in mind that if you want to achieve 160 and you are using a 280 degree, don't you feel like it is using a big tool for doing a small work? You don't take an axe and cut the flower, right? I mean, that's not people do. So there has to be a balance between what is required and what is available. So that's first point of it. So you need to understand what is LMTD. Once you understand LMTD and how the size of your heat exchanger is varying, the next important factor actually which impacts in the industrial environment is viscosity. Now, what is viscosity? Now, if you look at the two liquids which I have shown over here, it is no brainer that this is less viscous and this is more viscous. Okay. But then from the application perspective, viscosity is nothing but resistance to flow. Why this is important? I mean, you have a source, you have a boiler, you have a heater, and you have to transport it to the place where you are going to absorb or use it. And when you are transporting in the pipeline, this is going to actually encounter the resistance. There has to be some amount of energy that needs to be spent in order to encounter this resistance, and that is dependent on the viscosity of the media which you are using in order to transfer the heat. Okay, you can have air, you can have thermic fluid, you can have water, you can have steam, anything. Everything is going to have its own viscosity, and hence there is going to be a resistance. Now, for the things which we regularly use, let us take a look at how the viscosity plays a role. Now, if you look at this particular graph, okay, I have tried to bring out the kinematic viscosity, which decides the resistance for three important fluids. One is for the thermic fluid, water, and steam. And what is important to be noted over here is as your temperature of the fluid changes, the viscosity changes. If the temperature of the fluid is at a lower level, then the viscosity is higher. And as the temperature keeps increasing, viscosity keeps reducing. And surprisingly, you will find that steam has highest amount of resistance at the lower temperature. But as the temperature keeps increasing, almost all the three media comes towards, and it starts converging, and it is very low as the temperature increases. The next best thing what you are seeing over here is thermic fluid. Thermic fluid has much higher resistance to the flow in comparison with the water. What do you mean by all these things? So the amount of energy that is going to be spent in order to move this media from one location to another location is going to be higher in steam, is going to be lower in thermic fluid, and it is going to be far lower in water. But then what kind of energy are we going to spend on this is a different aspect. We will touch upon it. But then there has to be energy which has to be spent in order to move this entire media from one location to another location. Based on this, if I look at it, it is very clear that water has the least amount of resistance and steam has the highest amount of resistance. From the perspective of transporting energy from one location to another location, prima facie it looks as though water is the win. Okay, so you will feel that for transporting the water, the amount of energy required is less. But then what kind of energy and what is the cost of that energy could be varying, we will come to it later. Another important thing, specific heat capacity. Why do we call specific heat as a capacity? Now, capacity is something, is an ability of a particular equipment or a thing to hold something in itself. So specific heat is the capacity of an object to hold heat. How do we define this? I have given a simple example over here. Let us say that we are eating a steel spoon and a wooden spoon in a boiling water. Okay. Now, which do you think will get heated up first? No brainer, steel will get heated up first. Now, for every degree rise in temperature, the amount of heat that steel can absorb is very high, whereas wood cannot absorb. So what it means is whenever the temperature change happens in me, what is the amount of heat I absorb is what is called as specific heat. Now, if you take 4,800 kilojoules of heat, just as an example, if you are using air, you need about 1,000 meter cube of air at 6 degrees centigrade to absorb this heat. Now you see here, the media is huge, the temperature gradient is less, but the same heat can be absorbed by water at 11.1 degrees. So the volume of water is less, and then the temperature gradient that is available to you is high. So both of these is going to vary depending on what is the specific heat capacity of a particular media. Now, for this specific heat capacity, let us compare our three media which we have been talking about. Now, if you really look at this, what we have plotted, even the specific heat capacity varies based on the temperature. It is not a straight line. For none of the media, it is straight line. But if you look at it, the specific heat capacity of thermic fluid is the lowest. What does it mean? If I raise 1 kg of thermic fluid by 1 degree centigrade, I will be able to hold only 0.4 kilocalories of heat. Okay. Similarly, if I kg of water by 1 degree centigrade, I will be able to hold 1 kilocalories of heat, which is 60% more heat can be held in water in comparison with the thermic fluid. But then for the steam, it keeps on varying. Okay. So naturally, if you look at this particular thing, you will feel that thermic fluid has the lowest capacity of retaining the heat, steam is somewhere in between, and water has the highest capacity. Okay. So even again here, if you look at it prima facie, you will see that water is the winner. If water is the winner everywhere, then why are we using steam in most of the applications? Okay. But then there is a magic that happens with water. Water has a magical property. Now, what happens when water changes its form from liquid to steam? The entire property gets changed. And what is that property? We need to understand that in detail. Because what we are doing using steam is not change in the temperature. Every time we talk about the steam utilization, we say how the pressure will have to be constant and the temperature will be constant. So let us understand what this magical property is all about. This is a temperature enthalpy curve, which basically shows how the water behaves. When you have temperature of water at 0 degree centigrade, it is basically solid. As you start heating it, it will get converted into liquid at 0 degree centigrade. It is changing its form. Whenever a form of a particular media is changed, you find that the temperature remains constant. But the beauty with water is that when the form changes, the new form is very stable. Unlike what you see in thermic fluid. If you change the form of a thermic fluid, if you convert from thermic fluid liquid to thermic fluid vapor, then the entire property is lost. What is remaining with you is only the charred carbon, which is of no use and it is only nuisance for you. But water is not like that. When you change its form, the properties is actually much better than what it was. So water, when you start heating, it rises its temperature, and at 100 degrees centigrade in atmospheric pressure, it stops rising its temperature. It will keep absorbing the heat, but the temperature rise will not happen, and it will start changing its form. And this heat that it absorbs in order to change its form from liquid to steam is what is called as latent heat of vaporization. Now, if you look at the latent heat of vaporization, there are two important aspects which needs to be understood over here. One, if you increase the pressure or reduce the pressure, the point at which the boiling happens, that is the point at which the phase change starts happening, keeps on changing. At the atmospheric pressure, it is 100 degrees centigrade. Lesser than the atmosphere, it is 60 degrees centigrade. It could be 60, it could be 40. In fact, there are machines which employs boiling water at 3.4, 3.5 degrees centigrade, and that is where we look at our vapor absorption machines, vapor absorption chilling. Okay, that also happens. So it is what is to be noted is 100 degrees centigrade boiling is at the atmospheric pressure. You can create the vacuum and start boiling the water at lower temperature, at which it will absorb the heat and get converted into steam. But from the process perspective, from the absorption perspective, what we have is we have steam which we condense and absorb the heat. If you look at this curve, as the pressure starts increasing, this width, which is the enthalpy, starts reducing. So when you absorb heat at a lower pressure, you have the water actually has a ability which can give out a lot of heat. Whereas in comparison with a higher pressure, it is going to give you out lesser amount of heat. Okay. So as the gradient of the temperature increases, the quantity of the heat that is available with the steam keeps on reducing, which is usable heat. Okay, the overall heat could be high, but the usable heat keeps on reducing. And let us look at how that fares in comparison with water and thermic fluid. Now, the specific heat is the heat content with the change in the temperature, whereas latent heat of vaporization is the heat content without change in the temperature because of the change in the phase. Okay, so we saw that if you look at thermic fluid, I mean, this is the specific heat part of over here. If I look at the thermic fluid, it starts somewhere at about 0.35 and it is going to 0.6. There are thermic fluid which goes to 0.77, 0.78 also. I have taken a typical example over here. Similarly, if you look at water, for every degree centigrade rise in the temperature, it starts increasing. Now you look at the pressure, the amount of heat content is reducing. As the temperature increases, your water and thermic fluid has higher capacity to retain heat, but your steam is reducing the capacity to retain heat. But then look at the scale. This is where it makes a difference. We are talking of 0.7, 0.81, whereas when there is a phase change, it is about 550 kilocalories to 350 or 450 kilocalories of heat. So when I say water has 1 kilocalorie of heat per kg per degree centigrade rise, now steam has 450 kilocalories of heat when there is no rise in the temperature, when there is no change in the temperature because of condensing or evaporation. That is the beauty of steam. Okay, now this is the amount of energy that is available. So when you are using thermic fluid and water, what you are basically looking at is the change in the temperature. But when you are looking at steam, what basically you are looking at is a change in the form. Okay, so the heat utilization because of change in the temperature and heat utilization because of change in the form are the two basic differences that happens between the steam and any other media what you are going to use. Now, if that is the case, then why thermic fluid? I mean, thermic fluid is going to carry heat. If you want to have same amount of heat, look at the volume of thermic fluid you have to handle. It is 500 times more. It is 400 times more. Steam is going to carry 400 times more amount of heat. Then simply many of you would have already found opinion in your head, higher temperature is lower operating pressure in thermic fluid, whereas in case of steam, the pressure is going to be higher and all this. Agreed. Let us keep that particular point for a while and ask a question. But the question is, why not thermic fluid at lower temperature? There are many people who will come and tell, sir, 280 degrees temperature chal sakta hai, so 150 degrees also it will run. 160 degrees also you can use it. Why not thermic fluid at low temperature? What is the break-even criteria for changeover from steam to thermic fluid? What is the gradient of heat at which you need to be looking at changeover from steam to thermic fluid? Is it at 120 degrees? Is it at 150 degrees? Is it at 200 degrees? Is it at 280 degrees? What is the right thing to use? If that is the case, why not use aerators wherever it is possible? For drying applications, you all use aerators. Okay. Now the question is, will hot water ever be viable? If thermic fluid is there, air heaters are there, then why hot water is required? Though water is having such beautiful properties, why are we not using hot water in majority of the application? Why is our processes always linked to steam or thermic fluid? So what's the right source for my application is the question. Gentlemen, at this point in time, let us take a break. Let us give ourselves some amount of time to increase our latent heat for curiosity. I would request you all to assimilate all these properties what we have talked. I would request you to come up with queries in your brain concerning all the parameters what we have spoken about. Hold on for a week. We will come back with the final concluding session for this particular webinar in the coming week with the exact answers on how to look at using thermic fluid, water, and steam for your process, and where it impacts, what is the break-even point for that. Thanks for attending this. We have come to the concluding session, concluding part of this webinar. Let's have your Q&A, and let us look forward to our next session in the coming week. Thank you.